Before we get into today's episode, I want to talk about our friends at Game Time, the official ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. Football season is here, and we can't wait to get out to some games this fall with the help of Game Time, the official ticketing partner of Barstool Sports, like I said. So you know how much we love Game Time. Now with their brand new Game Time Picks feature, they're making it even easier to get to a game. Game Time Picks filters out the stuff to show you only the incredible deals they got on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. That's a great feature.
That's a nice feature because that is so annoying.
You just scroll. It's so annoying. So I was looking at tickets. I just found Pitbull's playing tomorrow in Tinley Park. Tickets are as low as $68 on Game Time. That's a good deal. I saw using Game Time Picks for great seats. Only here, like I said, $68. Just pull up the chosen event and turn on the GT Pick setting at the top of the screen, or browse the best local Game Time Picks deals near you on your Game Time app homepage. Download the Game Time app today and use code DOGWALK to easily score great deals with new Game Time Picks. That's code DOGWALK. What time is it? Game time. All right, Big Man, welcome to the Dog Walk, presented by Barstool Sports. In studio guest today, we are joined by Saagar Enjeti from Breaking Points. Chief is here as well. Second time running it back. Glad you could join us this time.
Yeah, I think my flight was coming in late or something.
Yeah, you weren't there last time.
Yeah,
I missed you.
Yeah, apologize.
So you are like basically our official political correspondent.
You're a part-time employee now.
That is a very...
you don't need a job, do you?
It's a very low bar. Yeah. You should definitely get your information somewhere else. Yeah.
No, you're
actually, I got a lot of my information from you guys.
I meet a lot of people who are like, "You're my only source of news," and it's kind of scary, you know.
Yeah,
like,
better do a good job.
Yeah, you better get some.
So if I say
right.
something stupid on the
Right.
show,
I've
send
had
your
a lot of
complaints to
people
him.
Tell me that. I've had a lot. It's scary, man. It's a big responsibility, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have been sneaky enjoying this past month or two, knowing that you have been going through. You just got married, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Just in the middle of like the weirdest political month of all time,
I know, dude.
How has that been for like?
I mean, personally, nobody cares about like me, but like, yeah, it was not great. I mean, here's the thing is that both my wife and I, we both work in politics. So for us, we plan, here's the other thing too. At a certain point, you can assume that things would be crazy, but you're like manageably crazy. You're like, okay, July 2024, like, yeah, well, it's like right around the conventions, but it should be all right. Like at that time, my theory was both the vice presidential picks, like we'll know who they are. Biden, it's a very standard story and all that. Like things won't be going well, but at the end of the day, like the presidential cycle ebbs and flows, and you'll probably be fine.
Yeah,
it was totally wrong. So it's like, it's like it was. I mean, it's just crazy because the other thing is we did not know. I mean, obviously it was planned like over a year in advance, and the debate ended up being so much more consequential than anybody ever thought. Yeah. I think it is probably the most consequential debate in American history, which is crazy to think about and to say. Even more so. I mean, this maybe get me in trouble, but like everyone talks about Lincoln Douglas, who were here in Chicago. The Illinois debates, and those are definitely very important, like for the historical record, but they were not as impactful at the time. In terms of the overall impact, like on the United States president, forcing him to drop out, I mean, that's such an insane moment. And to be honest, even when we took off for the wedding and I was on my way, I was like, I still don't, I've always bet on his arrogance. I think he's a very arrogant man. I think that at the end of the day, he really believes he's smarter than everybody else. His entire track record shows him that.
Which guy are we talking about right now?
Yeah, fair. Yeah. But the thing is with Biden is that it's not just the arrogance which shone through when remember, he's one of the youngest senators in American history. He was elected when he was only 29 years old. He has an immense self-assurance. And when you add age on top of that, so, here I ran into a bunch of my old friends who cover the White House, because I used to cover the White House under Trump, and they cover Biden. And they've been telling me for years, like, you have no idea, man. He's so, like, when he puts his aviators on, he truly believes he's like 45 years old. Really? And so it's like the delusional age plus his own like ego and grasp on power. I was shocked that he dropped out. I really was. And it was actually the day after my wedding, which I was happy about because I banned political talk at the wedding. I said, nobody asked me about Biden. I don't know. Don't want to care. And we were all hungover the morning afterwards, and I opened my phone and I was like, holy shit, he actually did it. He did. Yeah.
Well, you talk about the most consequential debate, like just that stretch. Where does that land in like the craziest couple week stretch in political history?
I think I was talking to some friends. recency bias is always a tough thing, but I would say it's up there with the week of 9/11. I think that's probably right. As in, if we think about 9/11 through, let's say, November of 2001, you had 9/11, everyone forgets, anthrax, and there was also DC Sniper. A lot of people forget about that one too. So when you combine those three things of like sheer terror.
That was sneaky the scariest one.
Right,
too.
exactly. Oh, DC Sniper was nuts.
It was insane.
And I was young at this time, but I've read enough about it and talked to people too who experienced it to just be like, you can't really underestimate how insane all that was. And then October, I forget the exact date. That's when, if you guys have seen the movie, what is it, like 12? Is it Horsemen or something? The one with Thor in it, whatever. It's the first CIA mission to overrun Kabul. And so then the Taliban falls. So all of that happened in let's say like a 45, 60-day period up until November of 2001. So I mean, I don't think it was as consequential as that, but that's up there in terms of what it actually was like to experience the assassination. Another thing though is, we were just talking about the DC Sniper. 20-something years later, if you ask people who lived through that, they probably wouldn't remember it. And what I think is, or they wouldn't name it, they would only if I brought it up.
Yeah.
And I think the Trump assassination, what I've been really stunned by is Americans' just collective amnesia. Everyone's like, oh yeah, that was crazy. And then everyone just moved on.
It drives me crazy.
It's
we
crazy.
Still don't know anything.
About this guy. Don't know anything about this guy or what happened. And actually though, if you read about the Kennedy assassination, it was very similar. After a couple weeks, people were talking about Johnson. I mean, people were, people had questions about Oswald and all of that, but by and large, a lot of people moved on, even though they always had a question in the back of their mind. So that has been a very weird
come
thing.
out for like 12 years or something like that, right?
1978, I believe is the year that the Zapruder film came. So fair enough. But there's a lot of reasons, different media and all that, but it is kind of amazing. I mean, if you go and talk to the average person on the street, nobody's even thinking about the Trump assassination. Or the assassination attempt. Probably one of the top 5 like craziest moments of my entire life. Like of my adult life, probably number 1 craziest news event. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, I mean the whole string of things has just been insane.
Right. Yeah, and it was like once Biden dropped out, that became the story. That happened like a week later, right?
Say it was
or 10 days later,
roughly. It was like 8 or 9 days later. He dropped out, and then boom, the entire world is moving on. It's weird too. Trump, he's like praising the Secret Service. He's not really probing. Somebody was like, why do you think Trump is not doing as many campaign events? And it never factored into my head that he might just be scared. Like he literally got shot in the head.
I replied to your tweet.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I don't think of him as a human being. Like that's actually a natural human being. But when somebody said that, I was like, that's one of the most human things I've ever heard about Trump. And actually very probably true.
Well, even at the RNC, and this could just be me projecting, but when he walked out, like he had like a different energy. It was much more subdued.
Right.
And he's this big, boisterous, large, he's not a human.
Yeah.
And that was the first time where it's like, like he seems a little bit nervous.
You're talking about a guy who for like 40, 50 years of his life now has probably gone out and not worried about any of that kind of thing. Like, you walked here today.
Yeah.
If someone ran up to you and punched you in the face.
No, it's going to change things. Yeah.
He never had to worry about that. There was always someone opening his door, always someone escorting in the elevator. Like, that would kind of fuck with you. Oh my God, I'm not.
It would shock me too. I've been in the Secret Service bubble. You feel invincible. Like when I was in the press corps and you're around, like when we were driving in the Secret Service thing, I'm like, even though we're going like 98 miles per hour, I'm like, this man is a Superman. Like he knows what he's doing. I don't even think about it. But I mean, they're all humans at the end of the day. So it probably is like really a shattering experience. He seems to be fine now and his campaign schedule is picked up, but he did take a stretch where he was just in Mar-a-Lago for a while. And I was like, what are you doing, man? We've got, X amount of days.
Yeah.
What is it, 79 days that you and I are sitting here right now until the election?
I feel like he rarely talks about it too.
He does. Well, yes and no. I mean, he'll talk about it if asked. But it's probably a natural human thing too.
Yeah. Really talked about it a little bit with Elon too.
Yeah, he did. But Elon was the one bringing it up.
Right.
If you noticed that. Yeah. Elon kept pushing. He doesn't really want. The other thing is, I realized you don't really want to criticize the Secret Service because your life is literally in their hands. Yeah. But that's a very perverse incentive because that organization needs to be burned to the ground at this point, man. They have so much shit going on. I don't know what is happening. But my hope is that the politicians are so craven and they care so much about themselves that they won't drop the investigation because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
You gotta have you need to press this and actually figure out what happened and put some stuff in place. But
2 days of hearings.
Washington is just one of those places where you can move on like this. And if the public pressure is gone, these people have no incentive. So we'll see.
Do you feel an obligation to keep that fire burning, like on your show?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anytime there's new news, like we'll cover it. Absolutely. All the video, even, I've even noticed like the public interest goes down. I'm like, no, we're not dropping this one. There are a couple stories like that we've done where usually it's almost like even like a business as a bet where for example, we covered a lot of election 2024 stuff for months up before Biden, even though the public interest was negative. So in our business, we know every 4 years it's cyclical. Presidential election is the peak. That's where you bring in all of your new audience. Wasn't happening. And a lot of, I saw a lot of like creators and others that basically covering other stuff and not covering the actual election. And I was like, no, we have to cover this just in case something pops up. And I'm so glad I did because I know all the dynamics over the last 2 years so that my like bank of knowledge is fresh.
Why do you think the public interest was down? Yeah,
it was very low because it was the election. Everybody knew everything. I mean, it's very difficult to form a new opinion of somebody whenever they've been president and are president. It's just one of those like, I mean, do you know anybody in your life who has not made their mind up about Donald Trump? Like maybe a 4-year-old, somebody who's like not cognizant. But if you're an adult of voting age, like, this man's been a feature of our politics since 2015.
It does feel like you have some influential people, Ackman, the tech guys who have switched or at least publicly now come out in favor of him.
That is very interesting. So that is actually, in my opinion, much more of an elite phenomenon than it is. So I'll put it this way. Supporting Trump in 2016 was anathema in all elite circles. The thing is that, and this is basically a problem of modern leftism, is that as like modern leftism and like the woke phenomena like accelerated through companies and started to actually inflict like real damage and other things to major organizations, CEOs, and others throughout the Trump era, a lot of those people privately harbored a lot of resentment. And then what happened is that they breathed a sigh of relief when Biden won the election. But the problem is that the same like forces at play accelerated over the last 3 years on top of a market correction, right? So you have all the float that allowed all this Google bullshit to happen. Bro, with a 5% interest rate, that's gone. Like, look at WBD. They just wrote down $9.1 billion in their cable television assets. You don't even have time to be fucking around with Russiagate and all this other nonsense when you've got $60 billion of variable interest debt. Paramount just did the same thing. So a lot of it is that they publicly feel comfortable to be able to signal against both it's like an in-group thing where enough people are fed up, I would say, with like modern leftism and forces of that they were saying Trump, they're willing to support Trump. The other thing is, it's not all that contrarian of a position to support Trump when he's been on the political scene since 2015. He's a known quantity now at this point. Whereas in 2016, it was kind of a wild thing. Peter Thiel's the only guy who did it in that circle.
And I think you could reasonably say where he's going to have his finger on the button. There's like that famous woman, the clip on the airplane, like you put that man's finger on the button and it's like, well, we went through 4 years and the world's still spinning.
That's actually something Kamala has done, which has impressed me. I didn't think she had it in her. She has not taken all the Hillary bait. So Hillary would always do our children are watching. Do you remember that ad? Our children are watching. It's all concern trolling. That's kind of what I call it. Concern trolling. It's so horrible. So can we imagine this, at the top? And Kamala has basically, the Kamala and the media are doing like, roll here. There he goes again. We're going to beat him in November. And I was like, oh, well, that's actually a bit dangerous for Trump because his instinct and what he's been very good at is he whips the public up, on an issue or something like that, gets everybody to talk about it. He forces the ground. It's like a strategy in war. Like you force the ground that you want to fight on. But when the opponents don't take your bait, that's actually difficult because now, especially with the media and all them, I think they really have learned that whenever they play into the outrage politics of Charlottesville or any of that other stuff, it doesn't work, right? It's never worked successfully on him in the past.
Do you think that he's struggling with what to do? Because it does kind of seem... I don't know. His messaging is a little disjointed compared to what it was.
It's very, I think he is throwing everything at the wall and he doesn't quite know what to do. It's probably, let's be human level, let's empathize. He was running against Biden for 2 years. And then in the last 100-something days, now he has to run against a totally different candidate, a different media environment. He gets shot in the head, literally, has to contend with that. And he's like, what am I doing here? I don't, my whole mental thought processes, and on a human level, like I can empathize with that, but I mean, I don't really give slack here because it's like, okay, that's politics.
Yeah.
You got to deal with it. I think that they are really struggling with how to define her. And the problem is that bad habits, in my opinion, are taking over. They are allowing, there's a lot of people around Trump too this time, which were not there in 2016. And I think Trump is at his best when he's a very lean, mean machine and he's by himself. And he's a great improviser. He's always trying out new stuff. But like I said, he's been around for so long. He is the Republican Party. So RNC, all the consultants, all the super PACs, the billionaires, all these people are up in his ear. And he's going with more traditional GOP messaging, which I don't think that this shit works. So, for example, he just tweeted out that image of like the DNC is communism or whatever. And it's like, that's like a Mitt Romney thing.
Yeah.
Socialist, communist. Now, listen, you may disagree or agree, but what I'm talking about is like what hits at the public level. And I mean, we commissioned some word clouds at Breaking Points, and the number one thing that people said about Kamala for the attack was incompetent. So in my head, I'm like, okay, like we're just going to go incompetent. That's not communist, right? Like that's not, actually those are kind of in conflict a little bit. Yeah. In terms of, she has a real concerted agenda as opposed to.
Could you be both?
Yeah. It's like, I mean, you can be both, as the Soviet Union taught us. But in practice, like what I would go after her is this woman stands for nothing. This woman stands for nothing. Who are you? And I think that's kind of where his Black Indian comment was trying to get at. It was clumsily executed, in my opinion, but like more so, that's just all I would be doing every single day. And I think Trump's running mate JD is actually doing a better job of this. He's always pressing the media. He's like, hey, why aren't you taking any questions? Why aren't you taking any questions? Why aren't you taking any questions? Same in terms of like, this woman stands for nothing. This woman stands for nothing. This woman stands for nothing. And if I'm Trump and JD, there's two issues where you have the major lead with the public. One where you have more lead than anywhere. Immigration.
Yeah.
Everything is about immigration.
But even
every word out of your mouth.
Flipped on that.
That's even better for me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, well, now whenever you see the tea leaves, you had, I mean, this is the best hit on her. You had X amount of years.
You were the borders are.
Yeah. You had X amount of years to implement your policy, and you didn't do it. And now you're changing your position. Like, who are you? And you know what? X amount of illegal people came into the country in the last couple of years. Why should anyone trust what you have to say? I would just say that for the next like 9 months or whatever, 3 months.
That's the thing that I can't quite, because it felt like Tulsi destroyed her.
Yes.
And it's
for
like
being a hypocrite.
Right.
For being a hypocrite. And that's a very impactful lesson.
But he doesn't seem to be, she did it in 30 seconds at a debate prior to Iowa, something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the problem is, to be fair,
but they're not using that same.
That was a left attack, right?
That
was like, you were a cop and now you're criminal justice. To be fair, I mean, Tulsi apparently has been advising Trump. She helped in the debate prep. So, I mean, that's smart for them. What they want to do is, if I were them, I would basically lead with some Laken Riley type situation on the debate stage. And I'd be like, her policies led to this murder of this girl by an illegal alien. And you basically were part of an administration that allowed that to happen. And only after the disaster has been wrought are you willing to now change your position. It's like, you are a disgusting hypocrite and we shouldn't believe anything you have to say. Again, that's basically all I would say. That and some economy, and that's it.
Yeah. Could you paint her as, this is what I would do, because I feel like they don't, to me, it feels like we should be having more class debates as opposed to left-right.
Sure.
And it's like, could you be like, she is just for the powerful? And could you paint like she's this, then she's that, she's whatever the powerful people tell her to be? And is that too difficult of a message to...
So I agree with you. I mean, I wish that things were that way, but to be honest, I have resigned myself to, this is a culture war election. I don't want it to be that way, but the reason why is, if you look at where America is the most divided, it's on two issues, immigration and abortion. And we're actually insanely divided on it, as in the people who want stronger border protection they barely support like comprehensive immigration reform. They barely support like legalization of illegal aliens. Okay. Whereas the other side not only support like mass legalization, they are really only want a more, quote, orderly process, but they are fine with increasing, let's say, the foreign-born population of the United States by 1 million a year. Whereas a sizable percentage of the GOP base, and actually even the people who want more border protections, they don't want like really any more immigration. Yeah. So that is, I compare this, there's a time period that is very understudied in American politics, which is called the Age of Acrimony, and it was during the 1890s. Okay. And I think we're very similar, where we had an irreconcilable question. Do black people deserve civil rights or not? And like, that was it. That was basically the question. Mm-hmm. And that allowed, if you're talking about class issues, the reason that the Gilded Age stuff was allowed to all happen for 25 years or so is that race was the defining issue of American politics at like the northern and the southern level, basically for 25 some years, until the debates of Teddy Roosevelt and all that came about. And so, and the other problem, something I've learned, is that if you look at the Age of Acrimony, that's when voter participation was like all-time high, because that's what got people going. And what did we learn in 2022? Even if the economy is bad, on abortion, this is again where America's insanely divided. People are like, I don't care. This is my number one issue. I don't care about anything else. Or I do, but whenever it comes to the ballot box, this is irreconcilable. So we are insanely divided on immigration, and we are insanely divided on abortion. And on those two issues, we have to reach a consensus before any class debates are going to be allowed. Now, again, people who say this are like, think it's counter to my philosophy. I'm giving a descriptive analysis, right? Like, this is what I think is the state of the country. I don't wish for the state of the country. I would love to talk about what you're saying about class politics. And I mean, I do think we are actually in a moment where we have never been less racially polarized, and nobody talks about that. Like, that's a good thing. Yeah, right. That's great. Yeah. You know, it's like, we have never actually been more racially polarized. We are, though, not class polarized in terms of economics. We are educationally polarized, as in 4-year college degree is the number one determinant of how you vote. But what people misunderstand is like, people are being brainwashed. It's like, no, you don't get it. If you go to a 4-year institution, the likelihood that you watch the same television shows, like shop at Whole Foods, experience, White Lotus. You know what I'm talking about? White Lotus. Okay, so did you watch White Lotus?
I haven't, but I'm familiar with it.
All right, so White Lotus, Last of Us, these are prestige television shows. But you know what the number one show in the country is? NCIS, okay? And so that's the thing, is that people who watch NCIS don't even know what White Lotus is. And so that's like a cultural divide, and that feeds into how we vote, how we think, who we talk about, what podcasts we listen to. You know, it's like that is the dividing line in American life right now. Is 4-year college degree or not? It changes everything.
Do you think so? This just popped in my head on that same note, where you saw the Google antitrust.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you think that after this election, once the main player, like Trump, is gone, do you think that we will move into that where the economy and the haves and the have-nots become more of the talking point, kind of like it did after 1890, which I had never heard of that. What'd you call it?
Age of Acrimony.
Never heard of
great
that.
Book.
Okay.
Well, this is another problem. Americans' sense of history is terrible. They're like, we were founded in 1776.
Nothing happened.
Fought a war. Nothing happened until the Civil War. And you're like, well, it was like,
and then World War II, and that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then there was, maybe if you're really smart, you know something about the Gilded Age and the Progressive Era. Yep. And then World War I happened, and then World War II happened.
Yep.
And that was,
and not even really World War I.
Yeah, and most people don't even know about World War I. And you're like, well, actually, there's a lot of stuff going on.
My favorite war. Yeah.
And there was, it's like, I always say, I think our politics today are much more like the 1910s and the 1890s than they were in any time before. And part of the problem is most people who know anything about politics, even know anything about history, so-called history dads. Shout out to them. I have no issue. But they're just watching World War II stuff. And it's like, well, you wouldn't know that, a lot of our politics, even our foreign-born population, a lot of the social problems that we have, they're a lot like, they're more like 1895 to 1912 12 than they are even close
and
to
that's when
anything we've ever experienced.
They say that Rockefeller just owned all the politicians too, which
not
you
just
could
Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, Jay Gould. Like I really recommend
the Titans of America. Yeah,
you know, if you want an easy intro, HBO has a show called The Gilded Age, which is actually quite good.
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's like a soap opera, but it will give you will align you at least with what the time period was like.
Okay, and then do you see parallels with that with today? With all everyone's always talking about getting money out of politics because it skews everything so wildly, which I'm sure that's how it was back then too.
You know, it's funny too. People are like, "We've lived in the most corrupt age." I'm like, "No, we really don't." I'm like, you have no idea. Like, there's people. Did you guys know that senators didn't used to be elected?
It was picked by a congressman.
Right? No. It was worse. It was you were appointed by your state legislature. Yeah. And so what do you think happened?
No direct election.
Oh, really super rich people were just buying Senate seats. They would go to the state legislature and be like, what's the going rate for a Senate seat? They'd be like, $2 million. Cool. Yeah. No worries.
That put Blagojevich in jail.
Literally. I mean, but that was quite literally how American politics work. Even in terms of stolen election, all the MAGA people like to talk about stop the steal, but they have no idea what actual stolen elections used to look like. One of my favorite books is called Means of Ascent. It's about LBJ and how LBJ stole the 1948 Senate election. Like they're direct proof. Stuffing ballot box, the most insane shit you've ever heard of paying off precinct bosses to stuff 100% of the eligible voters.
I remember hearing Pat Buchanan was on, it might have been Morning Joe 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was telling this story about how he was working for Nixon in 60.
Yes.
And he's like, they're Kennedys, they stole Illinois, they had every corpse in Cook County, and then it's like someone stopped him, like, well, why didn't you guys do anything about it? It's like, because we stole Kentucky.
I was going to say, because we were doing it too. Yeah,
right, because we stole Kentucky and we knew they knew. So we were, so we were stuck.
I mean, he didn't say it too, but, LBJ, he didn't steal Texas for Kennedy, but there's decent evidence. Listen, he was pressing the bosses. It was a very different time period. I mean, even some politicians who we all love, people like Harry Truman, he was part of something called the Pendergast machine, which is there was a boss. His name was literally Boss Pendergast. And he was like, Harry, you're going to be the senator. And he's like, okay, boss.
I got it. Yeah.
It was a crazy time.
Hey, let's pause here from talking to Saagar to talk about ChevyDriveChicago.com. Bears fans, the time's ticking. The time is ticking. That opening game is coming closer and closer with each minute.
We're a week away.
Right around the corner.
Yeah.
It's right around the corner.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yes. We all can't wait. And Chevy Drive Chicago wants to send you and a friend to see the first home game. Plus, the grand prize winner will also receive a gift card to help fund your tailgate or whatever you need for the game.
Get those dogs, get the grill, get going. It's football season. You want to be in a Chevy and you want to be grilling out with the tailgate.
It's a no-brainer. You get tickets, you get hooked up with tailgate items, and you get the tailgate with a Chevy.
Get your little butts over to Chevy Drive Chicago and then get into that south lot.
Awesome deal. So head to ChevyDriveChicago.com to enter to win. While you're there, check out the latest lineup of Chevy SUVs and the all-new Chevy Silverado. Chevy Drive Chicago is the official truck partner of the Chicago Bears. Make sure you're driving that in the south lot, the Waldron Jack, everywhere you can tailgate. I want to see those Chevys out there. I also want to talk about our friends at Twillery. Chief, I got another polo for you.
All right. Oh, polo, because this one's long sleeve.
Yes, sir. There
nice.
You go.
What is that material?
It's nice, right? It's a nice little stretchy fabric. So Twillery is a clothing brand made for the busy man. They made the most stylish, performance-driven suits, shirts, polos, and jeans tailored for performance and functionality. Their choice in fabrics and cuts means their clothes keep you cool, they won't wrinkle, and they have plenty of stretch to keep you comfy while looking your best.
Look at that stretch.
Oh, that's a great stretch. And, Chief, they're machine washable, so no need to take them to the dry cleaner. I like that.
I hate the dry cleaner.
So do I. I always forget everything there.
Yep.
And I'm always too nervous to wash polos, so I'll always take them there anyway. So you don't have to do that with Twillery. And right now, Twillery has their annual warehouse sale going on with up to 50% off site-wide. Polos will be as low as $59, and you can stack our coupon code for new customers. The coupon code is CDW18 for an extra $18 off, $139 or more. Go check that out. Go check out Twillery. And on that note, let's get back into the show. What's been the chatter? Because I always find the most interesting, like the back room, where people come up to you and it's like, oh, like this is off the record and everything.
So put it on the record.
I can't. But
I know that, but
I can talk some.
Yeah, but what's like been the what's like been the feel here, like headed into this in a couple
into
months?
Chicago?
Yeah,
I would say I mean, this is actually, you don't even need to be a genius to know any of this. Like the Republicans are on the back foot. They don't know what to do. They're afraid. I think the things that scare them the most is, like I just said, Kamala not taking the bait, but more so is the media. Media is very difficult. Like it's difficult to overstate that the media plays such an important role in our elections for a very simple reason. Old people are the only ones who vote statistically, and they like the media. And so how they cover it, even though 90-some% of the country will tune these people out, the 10% or so that vote at almost 85%, they're the ones watching MSNBC. They're the ones watching Fox News or CNN or any of this other stuff, or reading and consuming legacy media. And if legacy media is just so positive about Kamala, which they are, and basically you've got I mean, I don't think I can understate how crazy it is to only have 100 days to run for president. Like traditionally, running for president is a 2-year process, 18, 19 months. You start pre-Iowa. You have to do all these interviews. On average, you usually take place in like 4 to 6 debates before you even get to the presidential level. So you're on camera and you're on scrutiny a lot. Kamala has got not only the media in her bag, she's just got time.
Yeah.
Like every single day that you wait it out is to your benefit. Doesn't matter. And they're not giving her the Biden treatment. Like one of the reasons why a lot of people thought Biden was done and why they were ultimately correct is because the media turned on him. They're like, okay, this guy is senile. Like there's no getting around it. If ands or buts, like it's over. He's got dementia.
But it was both though. It was like it pre-debate.
Right.
Sharp as a tack.
They have, because no one keeps them accountable. They can just change. Yeah. They can just be like, no, actually, now he's senile, and 2 weeks ago he wasn't senile.
Right.
And the rest, I can't tell you how much shit I've taken over the years. Oh, he has a stutter. You're a disgusting person. I'm like, fuck you. Like, I actually feel that way because I went to multiple Biden events over my career. I went to the very last speech that Joe Biden gave as vice president. I went and covered a campaign event that he gave in 2012. Sorry, I'm not stupid. He's not the same guy.
Well, even if you remember that debate, the vice presidential debate in 12, it was like he put Ryan on his knee.
He was good. And again, I saw him in 2016, the very last speech he ever gave as vice president. I was there. I was in the audience. I've never particularly liked Joe Biden, but he was fine.
Yeah.
I can grade, he's given a B+ performance, in my opinion. Same throughout his entire career. And then all of a sudden, boom, and people refuse to talk about that. And this is where the media angle is just so difficult. So Republicans are the most worried right now about the media. They don't know what to do. They feel on the back foot. This is when they feel very similar to how the Romney campaign felt in 2012, where, look, no excuses or whatever. I think Romney was a bad candidate and had bad policy. But a lot of people, if you remember, Romney was painted as like this monster.
Binders of women.
Binders full of women. But more importantly, there was that ad about how they had to build the stage that they were later fired on because of an investment by Bain Capital, by the Obama campaign. Okay. And then was it Kanye who was like, or somebody, maybe Black Eyed Peas, like Mitt Romney don't pay no tax or something like. Anyway, so the whole culture was against Romney. And then that Mitt documentary came out on Netflix, and everyone was like, "Wait, this is actually a really nice guy.
He's a nice grandpa."
That's
like
how
picking up litter, and
right? He's like the nicest guy. Yeah. Or they were like, Mitt Romney has an elevator in his house, and it's like, it turns out his wife has MS. And it's like, I'm super rich, and I want my wife not to have to climb the stairs.
It was so crazy to watch him kind of run away from his wealth, and then Trump has 10x the wealth, and it was like, my elevator, I have 2 elevators and they're gold.
There's lessons in that, which is the fuck you attitude, which is that no apologies.
Right.
But my point is just that they are seeing a very similar media environment to 2012. Media was all in on Obama. They would do anything Obama said. Obama was a god, even though he treated them like shit, which is like a funny side note. He hated the media. He thought he was 10 times smarter than them, that they were idiots, and correctly thought they'll just do whatever I tell them anyway, so I don't have to give them any access. And he did. And they did exactly what he thought. So they're afraid because they think it's very similar to that moment. And I mean, you get billions of dollars in earned media on your side like Kamala Harris. And what did I say at the beginning? Americans have a collective amnesia issue, not issue, but like that's just how people are. They have a lot of recency bias. They don't remember or really know all that much about Kamala. Not Trump, maybe. Yeah. I mean, that Trump is an unpopular guy. That's another thing we have to remember. He's got high negatives. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people crawl over broken glass to vote against him.
Yeah.
I would say relatively equal to the number of who would crawl over broken glass to vote for him. He's a very polarizing politician. Kamala's got some decent gray space, and then add RFK Jr. on top of that, who is, I think, unambiguously at this point drawing votes away from Trump. I don't care about that, by the way. I think people should be, I think he should be on the ballot in all 50 states. I don't really give a shit. Like, you should earn his voters' votes, but, empirically, he is a problem for Trump, especially in states Michigan, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona. Those are where his 4 to 5%, if he's drawing exclusively from Trump, game over.
Do you think he'll stay into Election Day?
RFK?
Yeah.
I don't know. He told me he would.
Okay.
He's always said that he would. He hasn't been doing a lot of campaign
I know.
But,
I feel like the last thing I heard was the Central Park Bear.
Roseanne Barr interview?
Yeah.
Crazy interview.
Yeah.
That was a crazy situation.
No one's asking you about this.
The craziest part about the bear, and I'm sure what you guys think, is I believe every word of his explanation.
Totally.
Right? And that's actually more insane.
Yeah.
The whole sequence of events, I'm like, I see how in your head that happened.
Yeah.
That's still a crazy situation.
Yeah. I don't like... And I like him. I like
Bobby too, man.
Yeah.
I mean, on a personal level, he's been very kind, always willing to come on the show. I respect any politician who, even you give him a hard time, are like, sure, done.
Well, even that,
and you can actually ask him anything, which I did. I was like, hey, did you molest your nurse?
I saw that, yeah.
And he was like, I got a lot of skeletons. Like, I was like, holy shit, that's a crazy answer.
I was like, he must have an NDA.
Just to give you a background, most of the time, okay, so I interviewed Trump. Do you remember E. Jean Carroll? She's the lady.
Yes.
So she sued Trump for defamation because she claimed, what did she claim? He raped her in a dressing room.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I interviewed Trump the day that came out. And I was walking into the Oval Office, and Sarah Sanders was like, hey, don't ask about that. And I was like, maybe.
Yeah.
And so, like, what you do is you just get all your questions out, and then you ask at the very end.
About that rape.
Right. Just so if they kick you out, that you already got all your shit, so it doesn't matter.
That's what I did to Lightfoot about the Italian dick.
Yeah, you have to do that. You have to. Yeah. I'm glad. Right, that was hilarious. I really enjoyed that. And the Yelp review thing. Shit. That's a whole other shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so his people didn't even say don't ask about that. Like most politicians, when you walk in, it's a game, it's a dance. Yeah. Hey, what are you gonna ask? News of the day. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe don't ask about that.
Couple maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. We'll see. Whatever. Yeah. And then you ask about it anyways, and they did their job because they tried to tell you not to.
Yeah.
He doesn't even try. He's like, I'll sit there. I mean, I love that.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
Yeah.
It's such a pain in the ass dealing with comms people, I'll tell you.
Well, and I hate them. Even on like a smaller level, like you saw, like he does the whole podcast search.
Yeah, he'll do anything. And he'll probably come here. Yeah, if you want to.
I've reached out.
A Barstool podcast.
He did Bussin'.
He did Bussin'. Right. He was in town for like that crypto conference.
That's right.
Yeah, so he did Bussin'.
Some of that shit's crazy. Like we even when a couple of years ago, like Scottie Pippen wrote a book, and they pitched him to come on. They're like, "Hey, he wants to come on, but he doesn't want to talk about The Last Dance." It's like, dude, what?
Well,
it's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Wait, why?
Wait, isn't your whole book about your side of The Last Dance? Yeah.
I mean, I get it on a personal level, but then don't do media.
Right.
It's like you're filthy rich, bro. You don't. You barely even need to be doing this. So if you're gonna do it, then do it. But otherwise, just whatever.
Yeah. And but like even I don't know if you saw he did. This is probably 6 months ago, maybe more, when he sat down with Dave Smith about Israel. And it was just like Dave Smith was just like yelling at him.
Oh, yeah, dude. I mean, he came on our show. We went an unlimited amount of time. Him and Crystal went at it, bro.
Yeah.
And I mean, here's the thing. I liked it because again, I know all these politicians, they just won't do it. They don't put themselves in a situation to be challenged. That's another difficult part about the media. And this is what a lot of people don't get is that, the average television hit, you guys know that. A hit is what they call in the business.
Yep.
A hit is like 5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah.
How can you ask any meaningful question in 5 to 7? Every once in a while, Jake Tapper will do 20 minutes. I'm like, boo fucking it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like, and they act like they're like God's gift to journalism. It's like 90% of the time, the system is built to come on. And the way it works is they're like, yeah, you can mention your bill, but then we're going to ask you a question about news of the day. And then they get into a fight about whether Trump is a racist. And then they get off. But everyone wins, right? He can fundraise off saying, I told CNN to their face that they suck. CNN is like, see, I pressed them. And America gets nothing. Like, you don't actually get anything out of that.
So this is another question I've always had about the media in general. You're saying Obama gave no access, Obama hated him, whatever. So what is in it for them? Why do they do the blocking and tackling for the traditional left, for the Democrats, in a way where if 50% of the country is split, you would assume maybe it's not 50-50 in a newsroom, but it can't be zero.
No, it is basically zero.
Is it basically zero?
Statistically, at this point, it's zero. I mean, at the major papers, definitely.
Yeah.
At the major news organizations, it's probably not zero. Let's call it like 5%. Okay. But at the highest levels, there's a big tail end phenomenon. So at the tail, it will be 100%. As in all the people with the access, they're the ones. There is a sick phenomenon in Washington where people believe, I'm sure you guys see this in sports too, proximity to power is somehow confused with like power itself.
Actual power.
As in, so the ability to text with politicians, in your guys' cases with athletes or coaches, and get the inside scoop becomes a drug that you don't want to let go of.
That's awesome.
And so by getting, it's fun. I mean, in a certain way, it feels kind of cool until you have to be like, hey, so like, did you rape, so-and-so? And then, the phone number, it's never going to, you're never getting that call back.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, in my case, I just say whatever I want to say. And I mean, that sounds like it should be easy, and it's actually incredibly difficult because there are a lot of self-reinforcing mechanisms in media. So for example, everyone on the right, if we want to criticize CNN and MSNBC, cool. But when Fox News does something fucking stupid, in the past, you can't say anything because that's your only channel. And so people on the left can rightfully say, you never say anything bad about, Fox. And then vice versa. People who are whole careers criticizing Fox just ignore all this stupid shit for CNN and MSNBC. Same with the intra-party coalition. So, for example, like within the Democratic Party, attacking Republicans, easy, pointing out hypocrisy. But then you're never allowed to admit hypocrisy in your own camp. It's part of the reason why every once in a while, someone like Van Jones will be like, yeah, Democrats really need to do a better job of this. And everyone's like, oh my God, like Van Jones. Because it's so rare to have somebody who just says even something that is like counter narrative. And that's, I mean, the difficulty is that when you do that, you lose a lot of access. You're not on the team anymore. And I mean, it was very liberating doing my job, but it's weird too, because I'm not in the system anymore. And I was. So like, I understand what I gave up, that ability to make the calls to, I'm going to go to the DNC later and to walk the hallway or whatever, and everyone just like kind of pretends they don't know who you are. I mean, they knew who you are, but they don't want to talk to you. They're like, no, you're like an outcast. Like,
do you think that they would? Because you see, like the new media, you guys have blown up. Obviously, Rogan, huge. There's a ton of podcasts that have really taken off in this space, and it feels like a lot of their appeal is that, at least on the surface, to people like me, it feels more authentic. Versus like, so you've rejected that the people that have fed you from really my entire life bullshit, from 9/11 and the housing crisis, Iraq, everything has been a lie. So it's like, I got to look for something somewhere else. And you guys have incredible market share growth. Does that signal to them like, hey, maybe we should, they don't care?
They know on a private level, but their incomes don't, all of us here, we actually work in a real competitive system. As in, if we suck, we lose. But I mean, at CNN, I always have to explain people this. The cable companies don't make their money from advertising. They make their money from subscriber fees from the bundle.
Right.
So they have no incentive to get more viewers or not. Their ratings don't matter existentially to the company at all. I mean, on aggregate they do when the next time they negotiate their carriage fees. But CNN made $850 million in profit last year, even though our average show is like probably double theirs, and all of our audience is in the key demo, whereas maybe 10%, 20% of their audience is, right? But they have more cachet because they have billions of dollars in just like free money and like free profit. Whereas we all have to fight for a living on YouTube or whatever. Like the economics of it are insane. Now, it will blow up 7 years from now, 7 to 10 years from now, and it's already happening, which I'm happy about. That's why I brought up WBD writing down all their cable. I'm sure you guys saw what happened with TNT and the NBA. That whole season, that was very interesting, right? Yeah. So Paramount then writes the next day after WDB, they write down
NFL is getting sued.
The NFL, so there's very interesting things that are happening. Like soon these people are fucked, and their bosses know it, but inside the system, they are protected from the economics of it, where they don't care, because in their world, everything that matters is what other people think about them. So I'll give an example. Like when I worked in the White House press corps, one of the things that I hated the most is that there would be 25 journalists and we would get to ask questions. 19 out of the 25 would be the exact same question. And I was like, why is this? And I'm like, oh, it's because they're trying to impress each other. They care more about impressing each other in the room and going to the parties and the drinks and all these things. For example, this week, there are probably like 25 parties this weekend. And I'm not invited to any of them. I used to be. But I mean, and listen,
you want to host one at River North?
Yeah, baby. Yeah. I mean, I won't lie. Like, they're fun, right? Yeah. It's like free booze and top shelf liquor, and Google's paying, or Facebook is paying, or Politico, or any of these other people. You get to go and everyone's having fun and taking selfies, and the politicians are there, but you got to be inside the system, right? You got to. That's how you impress it. So when you go against that, you don't get invited anymore. But that's hard. Yeah, like it's hard for people.
But see, that kind of surprised me, because that's what I was saying. Like in the back room, because front facing, it all seems very phony, and I just figured at the end, like you got like a lot of these people all know, like, oh, we're pulling a ruse on all of America, and like hey, like we know, like we got to do this to make.
They believe it, bro. They believe it. Yeah. See, that's what it's actually. I tell people that's worse. I wish it was a conspiracy, because it's worse when they actually believe it. They believe their own bullshit. They really buy into that they are holding the people to account. They have a deep disdain for the American people. But the worst part out of all of it, guys, is that they do not have a consumer incentive. As in, they don't have to actually compete for market share. And so when you are insulated from the real world of audience and from, having to appeal to people, then you can do whatever you want. I mean, all of us know somebody who probably has like too much money and creates like a weird fucked up reality for themselves. And you're like, what are you doing, bro? Yeah. But that's their whole life.
I've been holding on to cable for so long, and this conversation makes me want to
dump it. Please do. 7% of households dropped it in a single quarter, just like I think the last quarter.
My parents
biggest drop in cable quarter. So I am an unambiguous cheerleader. I'm like, I want them to die, to burn, to crash. I want them to go up in flames. I don't know, how do you guys feel about the sports broadcasters, like Fox Sports and CBS and all of them? So is there similar problems?
I think that probably applies more to ESPN.
Okay.
Because I really now, like, I have cable. I just love the remote. I think that's really what it comes down to. But I don't watch sports programming on these traditional channels unless it's the game itself. So somewhere along the way, SportsCenter and all the ESPN kind of just like, I don't need this. And I see all the highlights on Twitter instantly. So that has kind of changed the landscape, and I just don't care what their opinions are. Like I can see it myself and have form my own thing. So
I think it's different too, because where you have 2 or 3 different channels on 2 different viewpoints, like basketball's basketball.
Yeah.
You can only cover it in one scope.
Yeah. So this team won.
Yes, exactly. And like this group is entertaining, this group is not. Right. So it's like you kind of grab.
That's a good point. I think it is interesting, because what I'm watching with the rights situation, because I always think about this. Politics is actually the last. It's not a leading indicator. It's sports and culture. Culture is the first indicator. So that's why, I mean, it's funny that I'm in the position that I am now. I was obsessed with like Rogan and podcasts and all that stuff a long time before I ever got into it. That's probably why I do what I do now. I was listening to Rogan like 2015 on the Metro, dude. You know what I mean? Like I remember being in my office just being like, who is Jake Paul? Like, what's going on?
That's something I still can't really answer.
I still don't really get it, but I knew enough to just be like, there's something going on here, man.
Yeah.
Like I always felt like there was a revolution happening, and that I felt like I was behind it. I was like, I'm too late to the game. and I mean, I worked out, I got lucky, but my point is just that I watch culture. So what's happening with culture is you had YouTube, comedians, people like my friend Andrew Schultz and others who created entire ecosystems online and are now being adopted by the mainstream, right? So Rogan gets a Netflix special live. You have all of the other comedy mothership people who are being embraced now. Shane Gillis now has Tires TV show. That's a huge, I mean, right? So we're watching people who blew up on the internet explicitly canceled and then being brought in. Sports is the next frontier. So that's why I don't even watch sports, to be honest, but the TNT thing, I was like, I know there's something going on here.
Yeah.
So I read that book, I think it's America's Game. It's a history of the NFL. Fantastic book. And what I really learned is like the way that the cable or the television networks, how their bidding war is really what enabled the NFL to become the NFL that it is today, with the massive fat profit margins, bidding people off of each other and kind of creating this new cultural phenomenon. But the moment that breaks, and the moment that the Amazon Primes and the YouTube TVs and all that, and those people start to get actual access, then when the carriage contract and all that falls apart, news will be the last one, and not enough people care about news, and then it will officially die. So my message to everyone out there, cancel cable. Yeah.
Cable.
Let it burn.
Call up Comcast today, I guess.
Yeah, call Comcast, call whatever, Time Warner, any of these other people, cancel them because it's a rigged system that you are artificially propping up, and I'm sure you can ask these two gentlemen. I'm sure there's a different way to get live sports. You could probably.
Oh, there definitely is. There definitely is.
But then they screwed up Hard Knocks last week, and that.
I felt like I had a win for cable last week when Hard Knocks was delayed.
All right.
I do have one, like it's a conspiracy-ish, back to where they're like, they believe their own bullshit, blah, 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 where going back to the Epstein, you had that woman, I can't remember her name, but she was on a hot mic, she being like, we had him. I had this story in 2000.
Scott, I want to say.
I cannot
ABC
remember.
News.
Yeah. She's like, we had him.
Yeah.
And they pulled it.
Right.
So then like
that was a crazy situation.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
So then like who is making that call?
There is no making that call. There is internal pressure. There are people okay, let's do the math. ABC is owned by whom? Walt Disney. Okay, so the Walt Disney Corporation. All right, so who's connected to Epstein or any of this other stuff inside of that? And by the way, it may not even be a conspiracy. You'd be like, this is an extremely litigious dude. We don't want to deal with this. Or what about the pressure? If we do this story, then we might get pushed back here and here and here. So and the executive producer is just like, let's not do it, right? And so that's another very pernicious. We get this shit all the time, man. So whenever I worked, previously I used to work for The Hill, we would do stories and then there would be problems because The Hill was an advertiser-supported company and the advertisers didn't necessarily like what you want to say. Now, to be fair, we never actually changed what we had to say, but like, could I tell you in good conscience that having the knowledge that there was advertiser pressure did not put an impact on what I wanted to cover and what I didn't?
Yeah.
I would be lying to you, right? And so all these people, they know, like they're not stupid. And this is what you have, the capitalism aspect on top of the cult. That is what creates the bullshit that you see. So I wish, Eddie, that it were the way that you think, but having been inside of those rooms, I actually think it's worse. Like they believe it. I've been in these embassy parties where, there's all these famous people walking around and they're all congratulating each other. This just happened, this is like a year ago. I don't know how I got invited to this, but I was like, I'll go. Yeah. It's been a while. And I felt so like a fish out of water because, you watch people like Jim Acosta or whatever who think that, who really believe their own bullshit about standing up to the press or standing up to the president and holding power to account. I'm like, dude, you're so full of shit and you don't even know it, bro. And they don't even surround. They have nothing to check them. I have so many people in my life where if I say something out of line, like I'm getting calls from my wife, from my friends, like, my co-host, whatever. But like they have nothing in their life, or this is the great force of capitalism too. There's no check on their behavior. Yeah. And when you have no check, it's very bad.
Run wild.
Very, very bad.
I guess it's more so with like the general public because I always found that fascinating how like obviously you're friends with Rogan, but like he would always say like the amount of people who come up to me behind closed doors that are like, dude, like I'm with you, but won't say it publicly. But that's probably more like celebrities and athletes. And
I was gonna say, I think that's probably more like Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like, and in Hollywood is like they're kind of weirdos too. To be fair, from what I don't know a lot about Hollywood, the people I know who are in Hollywood, they have told me that it's very similar to what what I'm talking about with politics, where very closed system. And if we think about the studios, how many studios are there? Like 3, right? So it's like, okay, good luck. It's like, you better not say anything.
Shut out, you're shut out.
If you get shut out, you're literally done. I mean, it's not, and the economics of movie making, we're not there yet. Like what we're all doing here, that doesn't exist for feature film. I mean, already look at, there are decent movies that are coming out on Netflix straight to Netflix. Nobody cares, man. The theater distribution and all that shit is a cartel. So as long as that exists, it's going to be similar.
I have one more kind of Trump strategic question.
Okay.
So obviously DNC is going to have a lot of these Free Palestine protests. They're already here. Yeah. And when you saw Trump talking about Ukraine, I think it was on that CNN where they interviewed him. Town hall.
Right.
And he's like,
I want the dying.
Stop. You're right. I want you to stop dying. Can he say that about Israel-Palestine?
He has said a version of it. So if you listen to him closely, he'd be like, I told Bibi we support him 100%, but you got to wrap it up quickly.
But what that doesn't exactly
he's like, but you got to
ceasefire.
You got to wrap it up quickly.
Yeah.
He's like, you got to bring it to an end quickly.
Well,
he said that like 2 days ago.
Did he? Okay, so I didn't see that.
He said that on the
did he?
Elon
Okay.
interview. Yeah. He's like, but you got to wrap it up and you got to get it done fast. He'll be like, it's a big PR problem. True.
Yeah.
So
because he was caught on a so we're friendly with Bilal Muhammad, who just won the UFC.
I know he is.
And he was at an event. Bilal, this is probably maybe January or something like that. And Bilal, you could see Bilal was talking. He's like, we're gonna get taken.
Didn't Khabib say something to him too?
Maybe.
I think Khabib also was like, you need to wrap up, and he was like, we're gonna. Look, Trump is the master of. Look, I met Trump. Trump is anyone to all people. He's the ultimate gentleman. He's meeting him was very instructive to me because I have met many politicians, and they actually are quite different off camera and on. Trump is the only one who is exactly the same. The only thing that changes with Trump is, and this is actually kind of amazing, is he curses so much whenever he's not on the record, but he has an amazing ability to
flip it off.
Yeah. For somebody who has like cursing that baked into their vocabulary, is pretty, I was impressed actually.
Yeah. Locker room talk.
Locker room talk. It was locker room talk.
I would wonder if he could get some young people by having a more of a firm stance on that issue.
Yeah, but you're thinking voter wise.
Yeah.
Miriam Adelson, do you know who she is? She's Las Vegas Sands Corporation. Yeah. So I mean, she's probably got.
She had a husband who was in
Sheldon Adelson.
Yeah.
He did the Venetian Vegas Sands. Anyways, 50 billion. He just gave him $100 million. Okay. So, I think we all know what's happening.
Yeah.
So
that's the stuff that
they're reporting.
Crazy though.
Yeah. The reporting was she's like, I'm going to give you $100 million, and when you become president, you are not going to say anything about like West Bank annexation. And he was like, okay. Look, let's call me anti-Semitic. That is empirically true. That happened.
Yeah.
And he just had an event with her at Mar-a-Lago 2 days ago and talked about giving her the Presidential Medal of Freedom or whatever.
Oh, I
don't know if you saw that. That was an insane moment. That is Trump's. Look, Trump is transactional. Trump literally tweeted against Bitcoin and then spoke at the Bitcoin conference. And nobody, I'm pro Bitcoin, by the way. And I was pissed off about his tweet at the time. And so seeing him at the crypto conference, and I know a lot of the guys in the crypto industry who are now writing millions of dollars in checks to Trump, is because Trump was like, there's a lot of money here. He's like, cool. At the time, there was not a lot of money in crypto. Now these guys are billionaires, like the Winklevi and all that. They wrote a $1 million check. I think maybe each to Trump. I'm not 100% sure. But a reason is because crypto people are filthy rich now. And they also are like abortion people. They're single issue. They're like, I want crypto to be less regulated. And so Trump is like, okay.
They're all fucking hypocrites.
Man. It is. It's so critical bullshit.
It drives me crazy too. I don't know. It's tough. It is tough. Unfortunately, I'm a cynical person, which is not a good trait, by the way, in like your personal life. But for politics, I have never been wrong by being more cynical. I haven't found a situation by where I've never seen anyone do anything that was even remotely like selfless, good for the country, in every case. And this is sad to say because now I've actually been in DC long enough that I know people at some of the very highest levels, or have worked at the highest levels. And I hear and know, at the very least, I'll know their junior staff and I know how they think. And every time I'm just like, I wish I could tell some of the stories. It's like, it's terrible. It's bad. Like it is what people think. There's a reason House of Cards took off. It's a stupid show. It doesn't make any sense. But the ethos, like if they could get away with it, they would.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it would be.
Just push her in front of a train.
Right.
Keep walking.
Yeah.
So are we still gonna have a city after this week or what? Like,
I think you guys will be fine. Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cops outside.
A lot.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like what's the mayor's Johnson?
Yeah.
Brandon Johnson.
Yeah.
I think even he was like, okay. I mean, yesterday, for example, at the protests, like the protesters were marching and the cops were marching by their side, like lined up like this, to keep everyone away from them. You know, peaceful protest I think is fine. What they are just trying to avoid 1968 at all costs, which I actually did a lot of reading about that, and that honestly was an insane situation. The mayor Daley at the time, he's
club
like,
him.
Yeah, he's like, fuck him. He's like, club him on national TV. I was like, dude, this is wild. Like reading about this.
The Dailies.
Yeah, it would not happen today. So I think you'll be all right. Okay. I do.
Yeah,
that's good.
There's not as much anger too with Kamala. I mean, she's throwing them bones. Like
throwing a lot of bones.
Yeah.
She's going to forgive medical debt. I saw the other day.
Well, no, I'm talking about Palestine.
Oh, Palestine.
Like they're having some panel or whatever.
Okay.
I think we're trying to get some people on our show this week, like some of the activists and others, and like I mean, they're getting more. They're doing like basic reach out to them, which is more than the Biden people were doing. So. I mean, that's all they really care about at the end of the day. Let's be honest. A lot of these people are Democrats. They're going to vote for Democrats anyway. So, like, let's also all be real about how.
I know, but it's like, if that to me, it's like, well, if that's your issue, well, the administration is still running.
Yeah,
she was there the whole time.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah,
but look, I mean, I know there's a lot of acting going on too. I mean, and that's not actually fair. I think people do care, but look. The closer we get to election day, it's like I said, we have irreconcilable issues.
Yeah.
People need to sort it out for themselves. For me, it's like nuclear war. Like whoever candidate I think is going to get us closer to nuclear war, I'm like, I'm not voting for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's very rare, by the way. Most people don't care about that or don't think about Ukraine or
the N-word.
Any of this other stuff. Yeah. They care about like not stupid things, but they care about what they care about, which is fine. Yeah, you do. I don't tell people how to vote, but that's mostly what it comes down to. And politics, unfortunately, the system that we've been forced into is roughly a binary, at best a tertiary choice if you live in a state with RFK Jr. on a ballot. That's a tough situation. And most people are willing to play that game because they care about one thing and very particularly, and they're willing to vote on it.
Yeah. I find it odd that it feels like the Democrats are the ones leading the legal charges to get RFK off the junior when it seems...
Why do you think that's odd? Yeah,
because
that's very consistent.
Yeah, but if he's going to be taking more votes from Trump, which is what it seems like, then they should just be like, why don't you just come
because,
on the
dude, it's about it's like the mob thing. It's about sending a message. It's like you don't get on the ballot. Do you guys, I mean, we're in Chicago. You know how Obama won his race? He got his opponent disqualified on the ballot.
Yeah,
people should go read about that. I mean,
for
Obama.
Senate, you mean?
No, for state Senate or whatever.
State Senate.
I think I forget.
He was running against Ryan.
So he lost his congressional election.
Yeah.
And he ran for state legislature before he ran for Senate. The race that he won by like challenging the ballot signatures for his opponent.
No, I actually did not know
it was
that.
Complete bullshit. Okay, like it's like total disgusting machine. I mean, look, this is my thing I admire about Obama is he's probably the most egomaniacal, calculating person who's like ever held the presidency, up there with like Nixon.
Yeah.
But he's able to affect a very different. Like people don't think that about him.
Yeah, no.
If you read like Michelle Obama's book and his book, dude, if you read between the lines, are you guys married or in a relationship?
Relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, he would like run for Senate and his wife would be like, I don't want you to do this. And he would just file. He'd be like, no, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And it's like, as somebody, you're like, as a conception of a marriage, you're like, that's insane. I mean, again, this is from biographer, I think, David Moranis. He lived and dated a white woman for like 4 years and eventually broke up with her because he's like, I can't get elected if I'm with a white woman. And you're like, holy shit. I mean, this is according to her.
Yeah.
But you're like, wow. Like, that's another level of...
Yeah, he had one goal in mind.
Yeah, he's like,
I'm going to be the president. Yeah.
He did accomplish it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
If you read between the lines, like, Michelle Obama hated being first lady. She hated him being in politics. She didn't want him to do it. I can't think about a relationship, like being in a relationship like that. Like, I don't, with your wife and like respect as a partner.
Yeah.
Like, all of that. But that's a whole other...
To raise our kids. Because the kids were young.
Bro, they were young.
Yeah.
And look at them too. It's not like it worked out all that well, right?
I don't know enough about them now.
Well, more so like growing up in the spotlight fucks you up.
Yeah, totally.
No, there's no. I know people whose kids who have famous parents. Like it's not It's mostly not a good situation.
Yeah.
Crazy.
All right.
Yeah.
Sagar, you're the man. Thank
Oh,
you.
Yeah,
thank
thanks
you.
for coming in.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Anything before we end?
No.
Anything
I'm good.
that you don't feel
excited for this
comfortable
week.
saying on your show that you want to say here?
I've said fuck it. yeah. I also try. Actually, I've been getting worse. Unfortunately, that's the problem with being your own boss. There's no actual check on on stuff.
Yeah.
All right. That's it, everybody. Thanks
Thanks,
for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.